Hey everybody, thanks for coming down the shore. Today, I'm going to be making something so cute and perfect for spring, Easter bunny bread. This is a soft, slightly sweet bread shaped into adorable bunnies, and this is just in time for your Easter celebrations. You can even make these with your kids or grandkids. It's a great way to make lasting memories in the kitchen. All right, let's hop right into it. This is what you're gonna need. 3/4 of a cup of warm milk, about 100 degrees. You're gonna need 3 cups of bread flour, but it's going to be divided because you may not need it all in the end. You're gonna need a packet of active dry yeast. It's about 0.25 ounces or about a teaspoon and a half. I have mine in the freezer and it comes in this big jar, so I'll take out 1.5 teaspoons when we're ready. You're gonna need 5 tablespoons of white sugar, which I have inside my little container here. 1 large egg that has been beaten. So I've already beaten this egg here, as you can see. We're gonna need 1 tablespoon of lemon zest and 1 tablespoon of orange zest, which I've already zested and put into this container here. You're going to need 3/4 of a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cardamom, which you can tell is blank because I unfortunately am out of that right now, but make sure that you add it into yours. A 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and then 7 tablespoons of melted butter. For the finishings, you're gonna need a whole nother egg for the egg wash. You're gonna need 2 teaspoons of water, 8 raisins, a 1/4 cup of warm simple syrup, and 2 tablespoons of flaked coconut. So let's zoom back out and we'll get this started. Now let's start by activating the yeast. In the stand mixer, whisk together the 3/4 of a cup of milk, 1/4 cup of the flour, and the 1.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast, or 1 package of active dry yeast. And we're gonna let that sit for 15 minutes. You'll start seeing bubbles rise, and that's when you'll know that your yeast is active and ready. So I'm gonna put all of that into my stand mixer and whisk it all together. So this is a great time to get your little kitchen helpers involved. They will love seeing the bubbly magic happen. Now that it's been 15 minutes, what we're going to do is add in the 5 tablespoons of sugar, which I just put into this mixing cup, the 1 beaten egg, the lemon zest and the orange zest, 3/4 of a teaspoon of the cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon of the salt, a 1/4 of a teaspoon of the cardamom and nutmeg, and then the 7 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And after the butter, we're going to put in most of the flour. However, I'm only going to start with about 2 cups, and then we'll see how the dough goes, because you're going to run it in the mixer with the dough hook for about 5 to 6 minutes until the dough starts to pull away. During that 5 to 6 minutes, I'll keep an eye on it, and if I feel that it needs more flour, then I'll add more flour. So let me get all this into the mixer, and then I'll start up the mixer and we'll let it go for 5 to 6 minutes. Just wanted to bring this over and show you guys that the dough's coming together, and once it is no longer sticking to the sides, we know that the dough will be ready. Now I left 3/4 of the flour out, and as you can tell, it's starting to come together, so I don't think I need to add any more flour. Now once the dough pulls away from the sides and it's been about 5-6 minutes, you're going to continue to knead the dough for another 10 minutes until it's nice and soft and shiny. You'll feel the difference in the dough. Then you're going to take it out and shape it into a ball, and then we're going to put it into a lightly oiled bowl and cover it with saran wrap to let it rise for about 2 hours. And again, this is another part where you can get your kitchen helpers together and help them form the dough ball and put it into the oiled bowl and cover it with saran wrap, and they can keep checking back to watch it as it rises. That'll be pretty cool for them. Okay, so the dough has been kneading for 10 minutes, and I'm going to bring you over and show you what the dough looks like. I'm gonna raise us up. It's nice and shiny. See how shiny this dough is and how it's stretching? And look at that beautiful dough. And it pulled away from the sides nicely. Pull this out so you guys can see it. Look at that. Beautiful dough. So I'm gonna put you back over there for a second. And what I'm gonna do is put the dough onto this floured surface. And by the way, This is what was left of the 3 cups of flour. So basically I used a 1/4 cup to proof the dough, and then I put in 2 cups into the mixer. So this was 3/4 of a cup left over from the 3 cups of bread flour. So I'm going to use, looks like maybe a 1/4 of a cup or less to flour the surface. So you don't really need 3 cups of flour, but it's also going to depend on the amount of humidity in your house at the time that you make this dough and other factors. So just keep that in mind. So now what I'm going to do is roll this into a ball, and this is when the grandkids or the kids can help you. And this isn't a very sticky dough at all. And we just want to create some tension so that this will rise. And it looks like I got a little bit too much tension because I got tears now. So we're going to put this in the oiled bowl. It's a lightly oiled bowl. I just put some olive oil in there. And I'm just going to cover it with some saran wrap. And I'm just going to let this sit for about 2 hours. And I'll show you how much it rose after 2 hours. Now for the fun part, shaping the bunnies. And this is where the kids are really going to have a blast making the bunny. You can help them roll out the ropes, shape the tails, and maybe even make the little bunny ears. So what we're going to do is take the saran wrap off the bowl here. And look at how much that rose. And we're going to punch it down. Look at that. Beautiful. And then we're going to move it onto my cutting board. And now we're going to need to cut this into 4-ounce pieces. All right, so. So I cut it into about 6 pieces. And what we're going to do is take one of them and roll it out. So what we want to do is roll these out into about 12-inch long strips. And you want one end to be a little bit fatter than the other because the one end is going to be used for the ear. So I had to pause for a minute because I forgot to get one of these silicone baking sheets. I'm actually making some barbecue chicken in the oven right now. So I'm just going to roll these out and show you how to put them on the sheet, and then we'll move on. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to take off about 1/3. And this is going to be for the tail. And then we're going to cut it up about here, another 1/3. And this is going to be the head. And then this is going to be the body. So what we're going to do first is create the tail, because that's the easiest to do. You're just basically making a ball, and that's going to be his tail. So the kids, this should be super easy for the kids. So there you got the tail, and then the head, you want it to be, so if you teach them to take their hands and do it like this, this is how you're going to create the head. You want it to be like skinny on the ends and fatter in the middle, but then you want one end to be not as pointy. So I think that looks pretty good for the head. And then this, you're going to need it to be about 1/2 inch thick. So we're just going to make this super long. I'm going to roll it until it gets super long, because this is the body and this is what you need to roll into basically a circle. So this is where I say the kids will have a blast with this. And what you're going to do is take this and you're going to put it into a spiral like that. So that is the body of the bunny. So now that we've created the body, and this is where the feet are going to be, we want to put the head on. And the head needs to be a little flat on one end and then pointing at the other. And then what we're going to do is we're going to push all the way down to create the ears. And then if you want to make them look a little bit more real, we're just going to push down halfway to create a crease, but not all the way through. Because if you go all the way through, he's going to have 4 ears and not 2 ears. So that'll create the ears. And then we're going to put the tail on. And you want all of this touching because you want the bunny to not fall apart. Now, if you want a pointy bunny head, you can do that. But you can basically make these bunnies look any way you want. But that's basically what the bunny looks like. And then what I'm going to do is cover this with saran wrap and let it proof for 15 minutes. So what I'm going to do is create the rest of the bunnies, cover them with saran wrap for 15 minutes, and then I'll be back to show you what they look like. And remember, this is going to be the best part of doing this with your kids or your grandkids. They're going to have a blast. And honestly, they don't have to look like this. They can look like any way they want to make their bunny. So while these were proofing, I beat 1 egg with 2 teaspoons of water, and I got my raisins out and I shredded my coconut to get ready. The 15 minutes is up, so these have proofed, and you can see they've risen. And I will say that I am not a very crafty person, and this bunny looks like he's eating that bunny's hiney. So again, make these bunnies any way you want, but this is what the recipe called for. I'm going to actually move this bunny because we don't want it to look like he's getting his hiney eaten, which is kind of messing up his face now. This poor bunny, he's going to be all deformed. But anyways, what we're going to do is coat these with the egg wash, and then we're going to poke holes in the heads for the raisins for the eyes. And the coconut gets done when they're done baking. So here we go. I'm just going to baste these with the egg wash so that basically this is going to make them nice and golden brown. I can already tell that these bunnies are going to look pretty deformed, but that's okay, right? That's part of the fun. Oh, he lost his tail. Now what we have to do is poke a little hole in the heads and put the eyeballs in. Well, that eyeball's going to be too high in the head. And then we just put a raisin in the middle. You don't have to use raisins. You can use whatever you want. You could use cranberries or maybe a chocolate chip if you want to make these a little bit sweeter. I mean, you can basically make this recipe whatever you want it to be. You don't have to use raisins. You can use whatever you want. Now, these are going to go into the oven at 400 degrees for about 12 to 15 minutes. And I'll show you what they look like when they come out. Now, I know the oven says 425, but I have barbecue chicken that I'm making as well. So when that comes out, I'm going to lower the temperature, check my internal thermometer that I have to make sure it gets down to 400, and then I'm going to bake these for 12 to 15 minutes. So stick around and you'll see what these beauties look like when they come out. Hopefully they're not scary. Hopefully they look like bunnies. I'm not expecting them to look like bunnies, believe it or not. I am not crafty, so keep that in mind as well. I am not a crafty person. I just found this recipe and I thought it was cute, and I figured everybody could make them for Easter. So come on back and you'll see what they look like when they come out of the oven. So the bunnies are all done, and as you can see, they've definitely grown. I should have deflated the ears before I put them in the oven to give the ears a little bit more definition, but you know, you can play around with the ears after they come out to try and give them a little bit more definition. Once these are cooled enough, I'm going to coat these with a simple syrup, which is basically just a 1-to-1 ratio. I took a 1/4 cup of sugar and a 1/4 cup of water, and I simmered it on the stove for like 2 minutes. Not even 2 minutes. It was more like 30 seconds because it's only a 1/4 cup. Don't let it boil. Just let it simmer and then let it cool, and that's simple syrup. So you can keep this simple syrup in the fridge for like a month. So what you're going to do is just baste the bread with this simple syrup. And then what you're going to do is put the coconut flakes onto the tails just to give it a little bit more definition. So once these cool down enough, I'll come back and I'll show you how to put the simple syrup and stuff on. So now that these have cooled, all you're going to do is, this is great for your grandkids and your kids to do, just take the simple syrup and just paint the bunnies. You're going to make them nice and shiny. They're going to have a little bit of a sweet taste to them, and they're going to be cute. Now, like I said earlier, I'm going to be doing these with my grandkids this weekend, so I'm sure they're going to love this. Some of them are a little deformed, but for the most part, they're pretty cute. Let me put one on a plate and put some coconut on it, and I'll bring it up and show you guys. And I just noticed there's another bunny that got stuck eating another bunny's butt. So try not to do that when you're baking with your grandkids. Oh man. Now you don't have to put coconut on these, but I just think it makes them a little bit cuter because it looks like they got a little puff of fur on them. So there you have it. The cutest bunny bread you'll ever bake. Perfect for Easter brunch and gifting to the neighbors. And again, having fun and making memories with your grandkids or your kids. So if you found this recipe helpful and you got something out of it, then check out this playlist up here of more homemade bread recipes that I have done. Thanks for coming down the shore, and from our homestead to yours, spread kindness, share a smile, pay it forward, and be the reason that someone smiles today. I'll see you next time.